Hello, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. It's Mrs. Glover. I'm going to be reading to you today about Southern and Eastern Asia. It's about historical understandings. So let's start up here. Nationalism is the belief that people should be loyal to those with whom they share common history, customs, origins, and sometimes language or religion. People who share these things often think of themselves as a distinct nation, although not all of the characteristics may be the same from one nation to another. So let's read about India. A feeling of nationalism began to surface in India in the 1800s. People began to be upset that their country was part of a British colonial empire. They were second-class citizens in their own country. The best jobs and the best education were reserved for the British. Indian craftsmen were not allowed to run their traditional businesses if that meant competition for the British. One example was the production of cloth. Indians grew fine cotton and weave was a traditional craft. Indians were forced to send all their cotton to Britain and then had to buy the finished cloth from the British factories. Very unfair. The first two groups to form work for the rights of Indians were the Indian National Congress, organized in 1885, and the Muslim League, begun in 1906. The Indian National Congress attracted mainly Indian Hindus, and the Muslim League attracted Indians who followed Islam. As they gathered more members and became better organized, they began to call for the Indian independence from British colonial control. Years of contact with the British had taught Indians about Western ideas of democracy and self-government. However, the British did not want to share these two ideals with their colonies. During World War I, millions of Indians joined forces with the British, hoping that their service would be rewarded with more control of their government. The British Parliament even promised that when the war ended, India would be able to work towards self-government. Unfortunately, after the war, nothing changed. Indians were still considered second-class citizens, and those who began to protest were arrested under the new Rowlatt Act, which gave the British the power to send Indians to jail for up to 2 years without a trial. In 1919, the British authorities opened fire on a large gathering of Indians in the town of Amritsar, claiming that they were gathering illegally. Over 400 people were killed and another 1,200 were wounded. This massacre made Indians all over the country furious, and almost overnight they were united in a call for complete independence. Following the slaughter at Amritsar, Mohandas Gandhi began to urge Indians to refuse to cooperate with British laws that they felt were unjust. He also urged them to be sure they did nothing violent in their protest. His goal was to show the world the injustice of the British colonial rule in India. Gandhi's plan was one of what he called civil disobedience, the nonviolent refusal to obey an unfair law. Indians all over the country began to follow Gandhi's lead, boycotting British-made goods, refusing to attend second-class schools, and refusing to pay unfair taxes. In time, these efforts began to hurt the British economy, which was dependent on colonial markets. Though the British authorities often responded with arrests and beatings, Gandhi and his followers refused to do the same. The world watched as the British Empire found itself unable to stop the protest and Indian refusal to obey British laws. Let's scroll down. In 1935, the British government gave up. Britain passed the Government of India Act that gave India some self-government. This was a start, but not the independence most Indians wanted. When World War II broke out, Great Britain offered India Dominion, control of the exercise of control, status in the British Empire if they would help the war effort. This would mean more independence, but not complete independence like India wanted. Gandhi and the Indian National Congress refused the offer. They announced that they would not take sides in Britain's war with Japan and Germany. The Muslim League, however, had begun to worry that India's independence might mean rule by the more numerous Hindus, and they supported the British war effort. They hoped that they would be rewarded after the war ended. While many Indians did help the British war effort, support for the war became tangled up in India's desire for independence. When World War II ended, the British decided to grant India independence. However, by this time, disputes had begun between Indian Hindus and Indian Muslims about how power in the new country should be organized. The British colonial leader, Lord Louis Mountbatten, decided that the only way to grant independence and avoid fighting was to divide the country into Hindu and Muslim sections. Feelings of nationalism in each group were more strongly influenced by religion than by any other factors that people had in common. The country would be partitioned into three new countries. Hindu India would be in the center, the largest because there were many more Hindus than any other religion. The Muslims would be moved to the smaller countries created in both the east and the west along the borders of India. The areas were to be named East and West Pakistan. Muslims living here would have to move to the newly created India. Through 1947, millions of people left their homes they had lived in for generations to make the moves ordered by the creation of the new governments. There was much fighting and many people lost their lives. In the end, the three new countries were created. On August 15, 1947, British rule in India came to an end and independent countries of India, West Pakistan, and East Pakistan were created. Religion became the one factor that had the most important role in determining the nationalism of the people who chose to live in these new countries. That's it for tonight, and Mrs. Glover and Bo are signing off. Y'all have a good one. Talk to you later.